today's video is going to be my favorite and least favorite books of 2025. We're going to do this month by month, and we're not going to go through the entire list of every single book that I read in 2025 because we're going to be here for forever. I saw this on Emmy Rossum's channel, and I thought that this was the best way where I could talk about my highest rated books and my lowest rated books of the year without like droning on and just going month by month and telling you guys which were my favorite and my least favorite books. Like, how many times can I say that? So we're just gonna jump right into it. There might be more than one answer for each month because I read some amazing books this year and some not so amazing books. Mostly like just such amazing reads. I didn't really read that many books that I really didn't like. So I did do a top 10 for the first half of the year. I didn't do it for the second half of the year because I'm just going to do it this way, and I think I can tell you guys which ones were my favorites just based on the ones that I'm mentioning right now and obviously my least favorite books. So, we're going to talk some shit, and also we're going to not talk some shit. So, I'm just so descriptive. Um, I am adding a couple more just to mention them, and it's mostly to like my favorites. So, let's start off with January. So, the first book on my list that I just loved so much. I'm not going to bring up every single cover. I'm just going to tell you guys the name of the book and the author and why I loved it so much. So obviously January, my favorite book of the entire year still that I read in January 2025 was Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. I think about this book literally every single day. I loved it so much. I never cried or been more anxious or literally just cared for a story of characters so much than this book. It was just a freaking masterpiece. It's still one of my favorite books I've ever read in my life, if not maybe my favorite book I've ever read. So it still sticks out to me. There's still like amazing books that I've read last year that were like 6-star reads, but this one definitely was my favorite. And then my other favorite, I'm just going to mention, was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. That was a 5-star read to me. Loved it. Tears your heart out. So good. And Onyx Storm, of course. But I want to stick with my highest rated and my lowest. And then the lowest rated book was The Crash by Freida McFadden. I don't think this needs any explanation. This book was just such a trek to get through, and I had just watched another one of my favorite YouTubers wrap ups, Sarah Hofty, and she talked about The Tenet, saying, even though I liked The Tenet a little bit more than The Crash is literally Freida McFadden's worst book, and I've read so many books by her at this point. I've read over 10 books by her. But last year I only read her new releases. So I read The Crash, The Tenet, and The Intruder. The Crash was the only one that made this list for my lowest rated book by her this year. I mean, in 2025. And Sarah had just mentioned that she had read The Tenet, and she said the same thing that I had felt about The Crash, is that why is such a fast-paced book taking so long to read, because it's supposed to be a fast-paced thriller, and it's such a task and a trek to read. So, and then the other one I want to mention, I didn't rate it as low as The Crash, but Four Rune Realms by May Corlin. Oh my god, this book was so freaking boring. It was such a trek to get through. I still ended up finishing the series though, but the other book makes this list towards the middle of the year. So, yeah, that should say something to you about the series. But yeah, The Crash, hated it. Four Ruined Realms, so fucking boring. But at least something happened within the last like chapter or two, but I shouldn't have to be bored throughout the majority of the book in order for something to fucking happen at the end. It's just not worth it to me. Okay, so February. My favorite book was Beartown by Frederick Bachman, obviously. You guys know, and my highest rated book because it was a 6-star read for me. You guys know how heartbreaking that book is for me and that book series in general. So I just I love that book so much. And this started my Frederick Bachman journey because I started with the most heartbreaking books by him, which was Beartown, but I wanted to start with his best books because everybody said that the Beartown trilogy were like his best books ever. So I was like, I might as well cut deep early, and I have no regrets. I absolutely loved it. It destroyed me, but I absolutely loved them. Um, and then my least favorite book in February was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood because I have a very up and down relationship with Ali Hazelwood because I ended up finishing all of her books um that I needed to complete her backlist last year. And now I don't really feel that way about reading her new release, which is and like her other books. Like she really doesn't have that many other books because at that point I pretty, oh my god, can I freaking type? Um I had finished most of her books, and I really haven't felt inspired to pick up Mate anytime soon because if you guys didn't know, Bride was one of my least favorite books last February, which is funny, in February of 2024 because that's when Bride came out, and that is my literally my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book I've ever read. So Deep End wasn't much better. It was a little bit better than Bride, but I just found that this didn't live up to what she claimed the romance was going to be like in this book, and I felt like it was almost kind of like making fun of like BDSM relationships. And then my other least favorite book in February, I think there was another one. I don't know if I care to mention it. You know what? It's fine. I put Deep End. We're gonna stay with that answer. Okay. Then March, it's funny for my answer for March because they're both book series that I ended up reading in March. So my highest rated book series and also books in general in March was the rest of the Beartown series. So I decided to read books 2 and 3, Us Against You and The Winners. I could not pick between the two because they're both 6-star reads for me. So I had to include both in the highest rated and in March. Just amazing. Again, completely gut wrenching, heartbreaking series. Absolutely love it. Lives in my brain every single day. And then my least favorite is also, I mean my lowest rated is also a book series. So I was like, you know what? I think that's really funny that this ended up happening in the same month last year. Um, because when is that really gonna happen again? When I read, unless I, read a 2 book series in 1 month again, which I don't know if that's gonna happen this year, but we'll see. So my least favorite books and series in March was the This Woven Kingdom series by Tahira Mafi. In February, I loved Shatter Me. Absolutely loved Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. Tell me why I don't like This Woven Kingdom. I just am so extremely fucking bored with this series that I felt like it was just dragged out so much with absolutely nothing happening. And I know some people adore this series. I'm not one of those people. I just think it's just such a trek and what do you call it? I can't remember the other word. It's such a hard thing to get through because I don't care because it's so freaking boring. So no. And I decided to DNF the series. I don't know if I might come back to it, but honestly, I really just don't fucking care anymore. It's just I am definitely continuing the Shatter Me series because I like reading the spin-offs as well, and I'm going to read the next spin-off book that is coming out in April. So I'm 100% continuing those. But I've never really felt like this about a fantasy author if I've hated or not really loved a series and really didn't like a series by the same author. It doesn't really happen that often when it comes to fantasy books for me. So, yeah. Anyway, so April, my highest rated series and also trilogy and books in general in April obviously was the Hunger Games trilogy. I read it at the very end of April. I can't choose which one was my favorite. Like, if you guys haven't read these books at this point, I understand if you just started reading. I'm sorry, my leg just started getting itchy. I'll put the camera like this. But yeah, I couldn't choose one of them, so I'm just going to say all three in general because the series is obviously a 6-star series to me and I've rated every single book in the series a 6-star. If I were going to say my favorite one out of the three, it's probably the first one because it's the first one that started the fucking phenomenon. That is Hunger Games Today. I literally cannot wait to see Sunrise on the Reaping, and we're going to talk about that book in a second. But the main reason why I wanted to read The Hunger Games finally last year is just so I could read Sunrise on the Reaping. And I'm like, I've never read The Hunger Games before. What am I doing as a reader if I haven't read The Hunger Games? It's like a little bit essential at this point. I'm not pressuring you, but I'm also saying like you are missing out. You are missing out on one of the greatest series ever. So anyway, love those. And then my least favorite book in April was Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams, which is part of the When in Rome romance series by Sarah Adams. So I do also mention another romance series on this in these I don't even know what to call this list, I guess. Um that I didn't like certain books in the series and I loved other books in the series. So like, and it happened with the first two books in both of these authors series and then I really loved the last two books. So I had just finished In Your Dreams. Last year was the I mean, I finished it January 1st because it was the last book that I read in December the last book that I read in 2025, but I didn't finish it in 2025 because I finished it January 1st because it came out December 30th. I was really close to the end. I think I was at 60 or 65% in December, but I was like, I'll just finish it January 1st. It's not a big deal. I just didn't really love the first two books in the series. It was still cute. It was still funny. It wasn't like something I regretted reading, unlike some of the other books that I had started the year with. But also, again, like the first half of the year, I definitely read better books than I did the second half of the year. Let's just say that. I mean, read some amazing books the second half of the year, but I'm just saying, like, I think I hated more of the books the second half of the year that were my lowest rated books as opposed to the first half of the year. Anyway, so now we're on to May. So this was hard because I read four of my favorite books in May that are like so highly rated for me. But if I had to settle on one single book as my top answer for May for my highest rated book, it would be One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. The fact that this was the only 6-star romance that I read last year, and the only 6-star romance that I've read since I think it was Beach Read by Emily Henry, because it takes a lot for me to have a 6-star romance. This book was just utterly perfect in every single way. And the fact that this was a 6-star read when I almost gave up on Carly Fortune's books because I didn't think any of them were that great before this, but literally everyone says the same damn thing about her summer romance books because I've read all of her books. I've read all of her summer romance books. I don't know why, I just did because I really wanted to. And I wasn't going to read this, and then I heard such amazing things about it that I'm like, okay, I'm going to read it for myself. Tell me why it's her best fucking book. It's just amazing. I love it. I also have 3 other answers for this, but One Golden Summer was definitely my favorite book I read in May and my highest rated. Also, Silver Elite by Danny Francis. I have to mention this book because this book was literally fucking crack to me. I was so addicted to this book. I loved it so much, and I literally cannot wait for the second book in April, so I have to mention that. And then, of course, I also have to mention The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Obviously, The Hunger Games is by the same author. I'm sorry I didn't say her name before, but I just assume most people know her name at this point. I just have some water. Yeah, absolutely gut-wrenching, especially Sunrise on the Reaping. I loved Ballad more than Sunrise on the Reaping. I still gave them both 5 stars though, and I'm 100% rereading Sunrise on the Reaping before it comes out in December. I mean November. I literally cannot wait. I have to reread it before it comes out. And at that point, I think I will have time to actually reread the physical book because I will be reading plenty of books that I hadn't gotten to the first 2 full years of being a reader. Can you believe this is only my second full year being a reader? It's crazy. Okay, and then my least favorite book. I actually have two answers for May. So I read some of my favorite books that I read all year in May, and then I read two of my least favorite books that I read in May because I gave both of these books a 2 star. And that is Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage and It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. Monahan, I mean. So Swift and Saddled is part of the Rebel Ranch series, and it's the second book in the series. And I really just did not like the first two books. Done and Dusted was a little bit better than Swift and Saddled, but Swift and Saddled was by far the worst book in the series. I still finished the series, but I just thought this was so cringy, so cheesy, and just so dumb. And the plot was just so weak that I just really didn't care for it. And then the third book and the fourth book, I really loved. Lost and Lassoed and Wild and Wrangled, so good. And what's so funny is that I just got rid of all of those books because I'm not going to reread them again. I ended up selling them to a local store here. And then It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. What a disappointment. And I got this as an arc. There are some arcs listed on here. There's only like a couple. Like most of the arcs that I read, I really liked. Like, not awful enough for me to put them on this list. Another one for April is definitely A Drop of Corruption. That was such a disappointment by the same author that wrote The Tainted Cup. I don't know why I can't. Robert Jackson Bennett. That's his name. I was blanking on his name for a second. That was such a like messy disappointment. Like a messy sequel, like Four Ruined Realms, A Drop of Corruption, and then there's another couple of sequels on this list that like didn't live up to my expectations. But yeah, It's a Love Story. I was so disappointed with, and I got this as an arc read, so I really wanted to read it, and I'm like, this was such a weirdly written Annabelle Monaghan book. There was so much like bathroom humor in it. The main character was so poorly written and just so stupid and naive that I'm just like, am I reading an Annabelle Monaghan book? Because I actually went back to Nora Goes Off Script and Summer Romance and I skimmed it a little bit just to see if I'm not crazy. And I read like a page or two and I tried to see if I could find like some quotes that she had written. And I'm like, I am not crazy. This is so much better written than this book. I feel like it's because her publishers are pressuring her to be strictly a romance author as opposed to a women's fiction author with a subplot of romance, because that's what most of her books were before this book. But this was pushed as a summer romance like so much, and I'm like, it was not like One Golden Summer. One Golden Summer, like I said, was the perfect summer romance that I read last year. That book was just literally felt like you were on the beach in the sweat, in the sand, sweating your ass off in the hot sun, but in like the best way possible. This book was just, was not good. Okay. So then next up in June, I have two for this book, for this answer. I mean, for my highest rated books, it's not a question and answer. It's just, well, it is an answer because it's what is my favorite, my highest rated book in June. Why am I explaining myself? Can I just like stop? Okay. My highest rated book in June was Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Again, one of my favorite authors. I finally had read another one of her books last year because again, The Nightingale just made me so sad that I always have to take a long ass break from her books because they're just so sad and devastating. And then my other favorite was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. You guys know how much this book means to me. It's just such a beautifully written book. I don't care if like the middle was slow. The last 100 pages of this book are just so beautifully written. And you just get so attached to the octopus in the book. And I just love it so much. It's such a beautiful, beautiful book. And also Releasing 10. But this book is very subjective. I just wanted to um answer it as being one of my favorites in June, but it's probably the saddest book that I read last year. And I'm talking about reading Beartown and Firefly Lane, The Nightingale, Blood Over Bright Haven. Releasing 10 is definitely by far the saddest book that I read last year. I cried my eyes out to an audiobook. And I usually don't really cry that much from audiobooks. I have to be like physically reading it. So yeah, so sad, but such a phenomenal book. I cannot wait for the next Boys of Tommen book. You guys know that Boys of Tommen is my favorite series of all time, besides Throne of Glass. I love those books. And then my least favorite book in June is Caught Up by Navessa Allen. Again, what a disappointing sequel. Nothing like the fun of the first book. This one was just like pure smut. And the dark romance plot was just so stupid. It's just like again was such a trek to get through. I'm honestly thinking about lowering it to 2 stars, and I probably will. I might lower most of these that I'm talking about as my least favorite books to 2 stars because I think I'm going to be a little bit more harsh this year with my ratings. I really need to be like, if I hated it, I need to give it 2 stars. Like, there's only one book that I truly hated this uh past year. So we will get to that very soon. Okay, then next up in July, my favorite book that I read in July was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I really do need to read more of her books, but I freaking love this book. This was actually potentially another 6 star romance that I read last year. Maybe still a 5, but I just loved and adored this book so much. And then I watched the movie after I read the book and I just loved it. Oh my god, it's worth all the hype it gets. I'm like, it's just a gay romance. I love gay romance books. I love sapphic romances. I'm like, how good can it be? I'm like, oh my god, it's just such a beautiful book. And I understand why it's so beloved because when we actually have a gay romance that just blows up like this, it just makes me so happy for the LGBTQ pride community that I'm a part of, and it just makes me so happy. It's just such a beautiful book. I love it so much. And it's hysterical. Oh my god, Casey McQuiston's writing is fucking hysterical. I need to read more of her books. Okay, and then my least favorite book that I read in July again was a little bit shocking because I did like this author's first book that I read from her, but I don't know if I'm going to read any more of her books. I might be done reading her books, but I do have an arc by her that I'm going to read in March. But after that, I might be done with her books. I just want to read it because it's an arc. Um, and that is In 5 Years by Rebecca Surley. Oh my God, you guys, this book, I hated this book. There was like no point for her to go back for her to go 5 years in time. There was no point. It was just such a waste of your time because just the things that the main characters do in this book gives me the ick so bad. I'm not going to say anything else. You need to read it for yourself. It's just, I can't. I cannot get down with it. It was just horrible what the main character did. And I don't want to talk about it because it's going to spoil the book, but just not good. Okay. Then in August, my favorite book that I read in August and my highest rated book was Wrath of the Dragons by Olivia Rose Darling. This was probably my favorite romantasy book that I read last year. What an amazing, amazing sequel to Fear the Flames. This was definitely one of my most highly anticipated sequels of 2025, and it was one of the only ones that lived up to its reputation. And I was so, so excited to say that I loved it so much. It's just such an amazing book. I loved Brimstone too, and I loved Onyx Storm, but this book blew me away. and I cried so much. And a lot of people who don't usually cry in books, they cried in this book. So, yeah, just such an amazing, amazing romantic book. And then my least favorite was Three Shattered Souls by May Corlin. Mentioned before that Four Ruined Realms was one of the worst books that I read in January. This one wasn't much better. I gave this one a 3.5 rather than like a 3. I think I gave Four Ruined Realms a 2.75 because it was so goddamn boring. This one was a little better, but still a very underwhelming series, and I barely remember what happened in these books because they just weren't that memorable. Like I said, the first book was the best in it, which was Five Broken Blades. That one was so much fun, action packed, and I loved the balance that she that she created with the 5 different assassins and balancing the 5 assassins' POVs. I might have liked Three Shattered Souls a little bit more because I listened to this strictly on audio because of the 5 different voices. But so many people were so shocked that this was not a 5 book series because everybody thought that, because of 5 assassins, they were going to get 5 books. But I still liked how this series ended though. And like I said, I still felt like I wanted to continue it over This Woman Kingdom. Because I was like, I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit better than Four Ruined Realms. But I read some really good books in August, so I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. Okay, so September, read 2 of my favorite books in September, and these books are honestly tied for me. So I have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab and The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. I finally had read my first V.E. Schwab book, which was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Oh my god, that book is phenomenal. This woman writes so fucking beautifully. And she writes like such tragic things going on in the most beautiful way. I love it so much. I'm so happy I had finally gotten to one of her books this year. And then I read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil later in the year. Literally in the next month in October, because I put it on my spooky season TBR. And I'm really hoping I can read more of her books in 2026 because I'm just obsessed with her writing. And then my other favorite was The Guncle. Oh my god, what an amazing book. It was so funny, so heartfelt. He touched serious topics in the most beautiful way that really hit you in the gut, but also it's just such an amazing book. Oh my god, I feel like even people that don't really love reading need to read this book. It's one of the most impactful, beautiful books I've ever read. Just such a good book. I really want to read the sequel this year with Felicia too. We probably will because I put it on our potential buddy reads list because we have to read the second one because we loved the first one. Okay, and then my least favorite, my highest, my lowest rated book in September was The Secret to Orange Blossom Cake by Rachel Linden. Again, another disappointing arc from an author that I really love. Because I really loved her first 2 books that I read from her. It's like the same thing as Annabelle Monaghan. Um, where I hated It's a Love Story and really loved her other books. But with this book, I don't know. I just like the main character was so dumb, so insufferable, and everything was so predictable in it. It just didn't have the same kind of magic like the other 2 books that I read from Rachel Linden, which was this Magic of Lemon Drop Pie, which is her most popular book. It also has a movie, which I still haven't watched yet. I need to watch it. But it's like kind of like a Hallmark kind of movie, so I didn't really feel the need to because I felt like it was gonna be like fucking cheesy as shit. And I forgot the name of the other one. The Most Charmed Life, I think it's called. That one was really cute too, but this one couldn't stand it. Okay, then in October, my favorite book and my highest rated was The Inadequate Heir by Daniel L. Jensen. The Bridge Kingdom series in general, I finally read it in October and I loved it so much, but my favorite book in the series was The Inadequate Heir. I just love Zara and um, is it Kareem's inadequate air, right? It's my favorite book, and meanwhile, I can't remember the male main character's name. Whatever. I just love it. Just such a beautiful war story in like the kingdom that is just so beautiful. I love it. That there's just full of betrayal and they betray each other constantly. And I love the way that Daniela Jensen writes the enemies to lovers in each book in this series. Just so good. But that was definitely my favorite one. And then my least favorite book and my lowest rated, not just of this month, but of the entire year, I gave this book a 1 star, and that is A Scar in the Bone by Sophie Lark. Just know this is the sequel to A Fire in the Sky, and again, what a disappointing sequel because I really liked A Fire in the Sky. But what the fuck was going on with this book, you guys? This book was such, not even a mess, but just like so absurdly bad. Just what a badly written book. And I don't know if it's because the publishers like maybe rushed her to get this book out in the same year as A Fire in the Sky, because that book was published in January and I read it in January. And then this book was published in November. I'm like, that is way too fast for a fantasy book. I'm glad that Callie Hart wasn't pressured to publish Brimstone right away and she took her time with it. Same thing with Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, and now she's taking her time with not writing writing the fourth book that's coming out in 2027. I still cannot believe we're not getting a Fourth Wing book. Well, actually, it's just this year. I have a feeling we're going to get it early in 2027. Like, I'm thinking, like, before April. Like, it might come out in January again, which would be awesome. So, we only have one more year, which I honestly feel like I can wait since we already waited a year since Onyx Storm has come out, or almost a year. Yeah, A Scar in the Bone was fucking horrible. I'm not even talking about it anymore because I despise that book. Okay, then just November and December. So November, my favorite book and my highest rated was The Will of the Many by James Islington. I'm so happy I finally got to this book. And I read both The Will of the Many and The Strength of the Few. Oh my god, what an amazing, amazing series. I cannot wait for the third book. Oh my god, I love The Will of the Many so much. What an amazing freaking mindfuck of a fantasy book. I just love it. It deserves all the hype it gets. I don't see one negative review on these because they're amazing. And The Strength of the Few was such an amazing sequel. What a great sequel that actually lived up to the hype. And then my other highest rated and just an honorable mention is For Whom the Bell Tolls by J.C. Lynn. I'm very impressed with myself that I'm remembering all the authors' names. I usually do. And I just love this book. It's so fun. It's on my shelf. I love it so goddamn much. What a great book. It's so goddamn funny. If you're looking for a romantasy book that's not like too much politics, too much info dumping, too much like and you think that you're not going to be able to like easily digest it, just read this book. It's such an easy romantasy book to read. Even though it's a little long, I loved every single minute of it. It was so fucking good. And then my least favorite, and again, and my lowest rated, and just what a disappointing sequel. I didn't hate this as much as the other. I didn't hate this book. I just thought it was very disappointing. Um, because I loved the first book in this series. So, and that is The Rebel and the Rose by Catherine Doyle. Just like, I was bored. I didn't really care that much. I'm still going to read the third book in the series because, I want to see where it goes because I'm still enjoying the series, but I really feel like this book suffered from like middle book syndrome very badly, and I think that the third book is going to be better. I have hope. I mean, again, since I really loved the first book, I'm really excited to see where the series goes. Okay, and then December. last month of the year. My favorite book that I read in December was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, and my highest rated book. I actually also have Billy Summers by Stephen King. I gave both of them a 6 stars, but Warbreaker was definitely my favorite book I read in December. But they're both 6 star reads to me. Oh my god, I'm so glad I finally read my first Brandon Sanderson book and my first Billy Summers book, my first Stephen King book. Can I Speak English? Both phenomenal reads. I'm so glad I finally got them off my TBR for my 2025, my 25 and 2025 TBR list. And I'm so glad I finally got to them in December because I wanted to read as many like standalone books that I could off of that list before the year was over. Loved both of them so much. And then my least favorite book in December was He Knows When You're Awake by Alta Hensley. I might lower this to a 2 star as well. I really did not like this as much as the first book, which is He Sees You When You're Sleeping. I thought that one was way funnier. This was just like my least favorite book that I read in December, but it's just like a silly little dark Christmas romance. So I didn't really take it too seriously, and I just wanted something completely mindless at the time. So I didn't hate it, but it was just boring, and I just didn't really like it that much because it was so insta-lusty and like kind of similar to like the plot of like Caught Up. They just weren't that good. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at CBW819 and check out my Goodreads and my TikTok listed in the links below in the description box. I'm so tired right now. So let me know what your favorite and your least favorite books were that you read in 2025. If you just want to put one for your favorite book of the year and your least favorite book of the year, please let me know. Or your lowest or your highest rated books. Or some of the ones that I mentioned, if you didn't like them, please let me know. Or if you really loved them. I'm super nosy. I know no one's going to comment because no one ever does, but it's just fun to ask, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna go because I'm so tired of talking. So yeah, enjoy 2026, a full new year of reading, and that's it. Bye.